Yeah, good evening. The woman who testified today prefers to be called Jane. She is now in her second day of testimony, telling jurors about the abuse she says she suffered at the hands of singer R. Kelly. She says Kelly would oftentimes tell her that he bought her from her family members because they no longer saw any value in her and she didn't mean anything to them. She also testified that she first met R. Kelly when she was 17 years old in the year 2015, but she said she actually lied and told him she was 18. She was an aspiring singer and she was hoping R. Kelly would help her make it big in the music industry. But like the first accuser who testified last week, she says her connection turned sexual, and she says Kelly then became abusive and very controlling. She said she had to have Kelly's permission to leave one room to go to another or to even use the bathroom. And if she broke any of his rules, she said there was physical abuse. On occasion, she testified that he would beat her with a closed fist until she started bleeding. She also testified one time when she broke a rule. As punishment, R. Kelly made her have sex with someone he called nephew. She says Kelly filmed the encounter with his iPad.
Day 4, August 23rd, 2021. Jane Doe number 5 was a 17-year-old high school junior and aspiring singer when she met R&B star R. Kelly. Eager for his mentorship, within 2 years, she claims Robert Sylvester Kelly infected her with herpes, physically abused her, and pressured her to have an abortion, all with the help of numerous associates. Now, 23 years old, and known as Jane Doe number 5, she was the second accuser to testify in Kelly's federal sex crimes trial in Brooklyn, and painted a disturbing picture of alleged sexual servitude and mental subjection under Kelly's grip. Former Kelly tour manager Demetrius Smith finishes testifying. Day 5, August 24th, 2021. A former girlfriend of the R&B star known as R. Kelly said he made her lie to journalist Gayle King in an interview that was supposed to repair his tarnished reputation in the wake of surviving R. Kelly.
She stayed at R. Kelly's home in Chicago until late 2019. She told jurors Kelly gave her an STD and made her get an abortion. She also said Kelly trained her on how to defend him publicly. One of the more interesting moments happened when she was talking about being interviewed by CBS anchor Gayle King. She says while King was asking her questions about R. Kelly, he coughed, which was a signal letting her know that he was in the room. She says although at the time she expressed her support for Kelly, she wasn't being truthful because her answers were very well rehearsed. She said R. Kelly demanded she call him daddy, but under cross-examination by Kelly's defense team, she said sometimes she would call him Papa Bear. The defense also questioned why she never sent any pictures to family members or friends of her injuries from the multiple beatings. Yet the defense says she did share pictures of her at photo shoots with Kelly and other places portraying that she was in a happy relationship. The defense also noted on several times how her testimony on the stand differed from what she said to prosecutors when she met with them before the trial. Kelly's defense team is doing their best to paint Jane as anything but truthful.
Here are some highlights from the day. Prosecution finishes direct examination of Jane Doe number 5. Jane Doe number 5 says Kelly made her lie to Gayle King in an interview 2 months after the release of Surviving R. Kelly. During long cross-examination, defense lawyer Darrell Kanick grills Jane on her parents' possible motives for letting Kelly get close to their daughter.
R. Kelly would oftentimes say that he bought her from her family members because they did not believe she had any value.
Kenny questions Jane about lying to the police and Kelly about her age on the day of their first sexual encounter. Jane reads aloud letters reminiscing about good times with Kelly, including time he staged $500 worth of Red Lobster in a room and played music for her.
Now, under cross-examination this morning, Jane read from several letters that Kelly's team says she wrote to family members. The contents of some of those letters we have to paraphrase because the content is not suitable for TV. But in the letter, she spoke about how she believed her parents actually pimped her out to R. Kelly and that her mother insisted she take pictures and videos of her and R. Kelly together so they could blackmail him down the road. She also said in the letter that her mother would drop her off to Kelly in the wee hours of the morning to be alone with him, and she says her mother wrote R. Kelly saying, "Since you're having sex with my daughter, deposit $20,000 in my bank account and then $10,000 each month after that." She said her parents used her to lure Kelly for blackmail, and she said her father wanted to provide lighting for Kelly's concerts through his company, but Kelly declined that offer, and she says her mother even wanted to partner with Kelly in a sex toy business. But under redirect from prosecutors, Jane made it very clear that R. Kelly made her write those letters and that the letters actually never made it to her family members' homes. Instead, she says the letters went to R. Kelly's lawyer's office. She says Kelly made her write the letters as a form of protection from prosecution if he was ever called into court about their relationship. And she said her mother never spoke of blackmailing R. Kelly or sending pictures of them together, and that it was Kelly who demanded she add the word blackmail to the letter to make her parents look bad and look greedy.
Day 6, August 25th, 2021. Prosecution finishes direct examination of Jane Doe number 5. Jane Doe number 5 says Kelly made her lie to Gayle King in an interview 2 months after the release of Surviving R. Kelly. During lengthy cross-examination, defense lawyer Daryl Canick grills Jane on her parents' possible motives for letting Kelly get close to their daughter. Canick questions Jane about lying to the police and Kelly about her age on the day of their first sexual encounter. Jane reads aloud letters reminiscing about good times with Kelly, including time he staged $500 worth of Red Lobster in her room and played music for her. Day 7, August 26, 2021. Jane Doe number 5 finishes her turn on the witness stand by reading aloud shocking letters in which she confessed to nearly everything the defense has accused her of. But Jane said none of it was true, and that the defendant forced her to write every word, leaving the jury to decide what to believe. It was the defense who first directed the 23-year-old former girlfriend to read some of the letters. Addressing her parents, she berated them for using her as bait in a plot to extort Kelly to satisfy their greed. "You made me feel like a hoe and a prostitute," she said. She accused them of teaming up with other parents to find old girlfriends that were mad. Defense finishes cross-examination of Jane Doe number 5. Jane reads aloud numerous letters that she claims the defendant forced her to write to protect him. Jane's friends said Jane stopped communicating with her after leaving Orlando to be with Kelly and chastised her for reaching out because Kelly might see it. Kelly's friend Keith Williams grows emotional while testifying about getting past her for Kelly's marriage to Aaliyah. Semen identified on t-shirt that Geronda Pace said had Kelly's saliva and semen. Saliva results inconclusive. Semen results.
Now, I know we're just in week 2 of this trial, but how do you think testimony in this federal case will impact civil suits against Kelly?
Oh my gosh, that is a fantastic question, because I was thinking about all of that earlier in a number of ways, I think. So especially for these victims. So the first issue is that in this case, with this testimony, I think it's opening up the door to evidence that's collected by these federal prosecutors that those same victims can then turn around and file civil suits And here's the interesting thing. They may be able to file civil suits based on this testimony against the people that are surrounding R. Kelly, that helped him orchestrate his treatment and behavior around these young women and young men as well. So they may be exposed to civil liability because of the evidence and testimony coming out in this case. And that's just the first step. The secondary step is that this information can likely be used in the criminal charges that are still pending for sexual assault in other jurisdictions. And he has several cases lined up behind this trial where this same testimony may be admissible against him in those other trials. And then the third, and this one is really interesting to me, is the civil liability that R. Kelly himself may face from this testimony. And this is interesting because just last year, he fought and he had a civil lawsuit against him that he lost because nobody showed up. He couldn't afford counsel. And remember, you aren't assigned counsel because it's a civil suit, not a criminal suit. And a default judgment was issued against him with the victim. And this victim had gone beyond the statute of limitations and time and still had a judgment. So that's the direction that I would look at as well for many of these victims that are testifying.
The details are not only shocking, they're extremely graphic. We can't share half of what we hear in the courtroom. But what's key to remember here is that on one side, you have these letters that these accusers have written to friends or family members talking about, how they tried to steal from R. Kelly or they tried to take advantage of R. Kelly. They all make the claim that none of that is true, that R. Kelly made them write certain details to get it on paper, again, to protect himself from criminal prosecution because they say he was aware that he was dealing with minors. So again, very graphic and very stunning detail. And this is only the second accuser to testify against R. Kelly. We still have 3 more to go. We never know who's going to testify next because the judge wants to really keep that under wraps.
And what I would typically call, this is esoteric terminology, of a slow plea. And that's a case where there's so much evidence that you might as well have just pled, but since you didn't, you're going to get all of this evidence until it's forced you into a corner to face accountability, which will be the verdict in this case.